Alright, you two, we are so back talking that FF7. We're talking Remake, of course, and discussing them outright confirming, supposedly, that the Remake games are a sequel. Comes as courtesy of the old Twitters, and them tweeting out what is a story synopsis for Remake, specifically FF7 Remake, the first game in the trilogy. And for some people, what is said in this synopsis confirms that it's a sequel. Which, that makes total sense. So they dropped this on us today, and to the side of the picture, it straight up says, Story Synopsis for Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, the first game, of course. It says, Mako, the lifeblood of the planet and the fuel that powers the city of Midgar. By exploiting this resource through the Mako reactors, the Shinra Electric Power Company has all but seized control of the entire world. A ragtag group of idealists known as Avalanche are one of the last bastions of resistance. Cloud, an elite soldier operative turned mercenary, takes part in an Avalanche operation to destroy Mako Reactor 1 in the city of Midgar. The bombing plunges the city into fiery chaos, and amidst the raging inferno, Cloud is tormented by visions of a bitter enemy long thought dead. After this hallucination fades, he meets a young woman selling flowers who offers him a single yellow blossom. In that instant, a host of swirling shadows surround them. Once more begins a story that will shape the destiny of an entire world. Wow, I don't know about you guys, but I'm convinced it's a sequel now. Did the synopsis for the first game in the Remake trilogy that came out almost 6 years ago, did that convince you that it's a sequel? So, where this stems from is really just the last sentence. It has nothing to do with anything else. Nothing else in that's hinting at or talking about it being a sequel, right? It's just the last sentence. And really, it's just the first part of the last sentence where it says, once more. Once more begins a story that will shape the destiny of an entire world. So, because it says once more, for some people out there, that's implying that, it's happened before, right? Like, the story of FF7 in universe has happened before. Like, we've gone through the fucking Disc 1, Disc 2, Disc 3 of OG FF7, right? And, we're doing it again, essentially. Once more begins a story. Problem is, it's not what it says in Japanese. In fact, in Japanese, it doesn't even mention the world at all. It talks about Cloud and his destiny changing by meeting Aerith. It just straight up says, Cloud's encounter with Aerith will greatly change his destiny. But again, on the English side of things, it doesn't even mention Cloud at all. And actually, through the entire English synopsis, it doesn't even name Aerith, right? It just mentions her being like a young woman selling flowers, right? That Cloud meets. And in the last sentence, they don't even mention Aerith at all either in the English, right? People are latching on to that English synopsis for the story like it means something, and it doesn't. Because again, in the last sentence doesn't even say once more. Like, it never says that, right? That's just the English. That's just like Sinner or whoever does this shit. The localization, the English stuff, right? That is just fucking terrible, and they mess everything up all the time. I don't know if the localization team is specifically to blame for this, because this is social media marketing stuff, right? But overall, the English side of things that we get with this game, especially in-game, is fucking garbage. We did a whole video about this months ago where we kind of talked about the localization, all the problems with it. There's a lot of terrible examples in this, in Rebirth and Remake. The most egregious one for me that we talked about in that video was from Rebirth, where it's the flashback with Dyne and Barret. And it's when Barret's trying to convince Dyne to, switch over to Mako, obviously. And in the English side of things, he tells him to do it for his daughter, but that flashback's taking place 2 years before fucking Marlene's even born. It doesn't make any goddamn sense. And in the Japanese, he's talking about doing it for Eleanor, right, who is alive and does exist in this world. I'm not here to go down a localization rabbit hole with this video, right? It's not necessarily the point of the video, but it's just one of those things that once it's pointed out to you and you see how many terrible examples there are of what they do with the script in English, it kind of feels like you're getting ripped off playing the game in English. It makes you wish I understood other languages, right? Because pretty much every other language, like Japanese, Spanish, German, all those other fucking languages that the game's, translated into, the script is pretty fucking accurate. I'm not saying that it is all the time, because I obviously haven't looked that deep into it, but from the lines I've seen translated, it's pretty accurate. And then you get a line in English, and it's just sometimes so fucking different, it doesn't even make sense. People look to this English marketing for Remake, or look to the English script of Remake or Rebirth or whatever, to build their theories on what they think is happening with these games. It's kind of embarrassing, because oftentimes it doesn't even match at all what's said in Japanese. And I'm certainly not saying that in the Japanese script there's not allusions to potentially the shit being a sequel or whatever theory you want to run with the games, right? I'm not saying that's not a thing in the original language or whatever. But it's just a lot of people base their theories off of what's said in English, and that's not the way to do this, for fucking sure. But you can simply go over to Twitter and look at the quote tweets on this specific tweet that tweeted out the story synopsis, and the amount of people that are highlighting the once more thing as, proof of whatever particular theory they might subscribe to. When again, that shit's not even fucking said in the Japanese story synopsis. It didn't even fucking say anything about the planet. Talk about Cloud's destiny changing being there. It's fucking stupid. And to be clear, both the English sentence, if you ignore the stupid ass once more thing, and the Japanese sentence are both true, right? Cloud and Aerith meeting does, change the destiny of the planet, of the world, right? But also Cloud meeting Aerith does change his destiny as well, right? If Cloud had never met Aerith, completely different story happens. For one, Sephiroth probably kills everybody. Here's something, too, I want to say. Like, I enjoy the theory crafting stuff. It's fun to talk about sometimes. We don't do it so much on the channel anymore, and I used to do it a lot, right? Post-Remake, that shit was really, really fun. Based on, like, how they handled the ending of Remake, there was a lot of possibilities for what could be happening, and that was really, really fun to talk about and discuss for the couple years leading up to Rebirth, right? I was certainly in that camp of potential sequel, things being different, maybe Aerith living. I wasn't super into that theory, but possibly. Zack being alive, that's, like, the vibe you definitely got at the end of Remake, right? I was super into that shit. And then we got to Rebirth, and I think Rebirth is a fantastic game, and I think in pretty much every possible way I can think of, a better game than Remake. But post-Rebirth, I don't necessarily get that vibe anymore. Like, those theories that I thought were super interesting, and the possibilities and whatever, I don't feel that after Rebirth. And for quite a lot of people out there, Rebirth solidified their theories, whatever potential theory. I always mention sequel, but that's not like the only theory out there. There's a lot of different theories, right? But whatever theory people are interested in, like, Rebirth solidified that for them. And for me, I just kind of got the opposite. Like, I definitely feel like it's just a reimagining, just telling the FF7 story. There's obviously new stuff, an expanding of lore on how the live stream works. And that can still fall into almost sequel territory. There's all these infinite worlds inside the planet. Who's to say there's not a world where FF7 did happen at some point, right? I personally love the idea of new stuff when it comes to the Remake trilogy, right? The idea of it being a sequel was super interesting to me, or just in general, new stuff happening. Like, for me, that was so much more interesting than the possibility of just like a straight up remake of the original FF7, because I can just play that any time, right? And like the prospect of it maybe being a new story, adding to the lore, as in like a compilation edition, which is something we were told years ago, I think from Nomura or something like that, where he mentioned that it was a part of the compilation, which the compilation for FF7 is the supplemental materials, everything besides the original FF7, right? Where it's like prequels and sequel stuff, right? So I was definitely there pretty early on. I think that translation came from the Ultimania, which came out not too long after Remake came out. And after you're playing Remake and then seeing the Ultimania translations and stuff like that, I was definitely there for the idea of it being, a sequel, whatever. And then just through the years as time went on, and then we eventually got to Rebirth, like, I just didn't get that vibe anymore. But I don't write things off entirely, as we talked about a lot on the channel. Like, I'm in a particular camp of what I think's happening, but also I'm open to the possibility of new stuff, because I don't write anything off until we get all 3 games for one, right? And there's definitely still some weird shit happening here and there with the story. They're obviously teasing shit with Zack. At the end of Rebirth, if there's any sort of payoff for that, I don't know. At the ending of Remake, we're supposed to be like breaking away from the chains of destiny and whatever. And there's no fucking payoff in Rebirth. Maybe the payoff from the ending of Remake will happen in the 3rd game, but that remains to be seen. We're supposed to be like altering fates in Destiny or whatever, right? Aerith still fucking died in Rebirth, so it's like the whole ending of Remake, unless there's a payoff in the 3rd game, to me feels like it was all a bunch of bullshit. But again, I'm still open to the possibility of new stuff, right? I think this is happening, the FF7 just reimagining, but also I'm open to this over here a little bit. I'm still there kind of in the back of my mind, hoping that there could be some new stuff. But ultimately, when it comes to like this discussion, people are hardcore in one camp or the other, right? It's just FF7 again, or it is a sequel or whatever other theories are out there. And it can't be both. It can only be one or the other. And a large part of the fandom is going to look ridiculous once the 3rd game comes out, because one of them can be true. I mean, unless they can find a way to appease both somehow. I guess there's the multiple worlds, so you can maybe make both true somehow. But like, realistically, only one of them can be true. It being a sequel or it just being FF7 again. And there's people that have been talking about this shit religiously, pretty much daily since fucking like 2019, 2020, right? Talking about whether this is or isn't a sequel, that whole thing. The conversation's been existing for a very, very long time in the community. And come, 2027 or so, when the 3rd game comes out, like, a large group of people are going to be proven wrong one way or another. And I don't know. Like, we'll just say, as an example here, if you're somebody that believes it is a sequel, and we get to the 3rd game, and it's proven that it's not a sequel, it's just FF7 again, right? But you've been saying for years and years and years now that 100% it's got to be a sequel. You look fucking stupid, right? Like, and the same can be said on the other side of the conversation too. I'm not just picking on the theory people, but it's like, if you subscribe to this theory hardcore one way or the other, like, once we get to the 3rd game, man, a lot of people are gonna look stupid. And it's not me playing the fence, right? I've said what I think's happening. It's, FF7 reimagining, essentially. You're expanding the lore, that whole whatever. But I am open to the possibility of new stuff, because at my core, at my heart, at my crisis core, you might say, I do want there to be new stuff, right? That's what I ultimately wanted from the Remake project. I like the possibility of it being a sequel. I'm there. Again, that's still back there somewhere. But it's not what I think is ultimately happening with these games. And I would love to be wrong. And that's why we got to get to the third game, right? That's what we're waiting on. We're waiting on some sort of marketing stuff. The trailers are a little deceptive. Things are, shown out of context. They show you one scene, but there's dialogue from a completely different scene thrown over that, so you don't know what's actually happening. So trailers themselves aren't really going to tell us anything in terms of what's actually happening with the third game. So we ultimately got to get to the release of the third game and actually play the fucking story and see what actually happens. The point of this entire video is we're all losing our minds. We just need something for the third game. The Rebirth isn't even 2 years old yet, and we're just desperate for the next game, dude. Ultimately, of course, got to pass it off to you guys. What are your thoughts on this? Are you convinced that it is indeed a sequel based on the marketing they're doing for the Switch 2 Xbox release of the first game in the Remake trilogy? They would definitely want to spoil that it's a sequel when they're marketing the first game, the release of the first game that's fucking 4 to 5 years old. Anyways, my dudes, that is indeed the video. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Social networks in the description below. Follow me on Twitter, dashingdavidbusiness. That's it. Bye.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Low Gain or leave it like Cobain.